Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 296. We are joined by a third time guest. And he has been on twice before, obviously, 'cause he's a third time guest. The first time was episode 214, which was called The Fabric of Strength. That was way back in October 2024. Okay. And that's where we talked all about the Dinnie stones and stone lifting and kind of this guest's father, Jack, and the whole history behind that. And then the next time was episode 255, which was called Stone Lifting, the Gathering and Connection. And that was July 2025. So if you haven't listened to those and you want to go back, you can go back and listen to those. But we are joined for the third time today from whereabouts are you in Ireland or Northern Ireland, Stevie?
I'm in Belfast, Northern Ireland, chum.
Belfast, Northern Ireland by Stevie Shanks. How are you doing, Stevie?
I'm doing the best, thank you. Way better than I suppose I should be. I feel great. Honestly, I feel blessed to be having this conversation with you, to be in a position where I can talk about what's not only what's happened, but what's coming. Plenty to look forward to.
Excellent. So yeah, because I know that obviously when you've been on the podcast before, I'm sure lots of people have then started following you from those podcasts. And I mean, do you want to tell us kind of a bit of a timeline and what has happened? So you were last on with us July 2025, and then obviously both Pete and I were up in Scotland with you for the gathering last August
Yeah.
there, and then kind of what happened to you or what happened since then?
Well, there's the mind that my years are always busy with different things that I like to do, with the stone lifting. And I'd been over to FIFOR just before I hung out with you guys for the Strength Week over there. I had run the gathering. My next madcap adventure after that was the IAWA World Championships, and that was actually held in Northern Ireland. Now, IAWA, the International All Round Weightlifting Association, just so you don't have to use Thor's hammer.
I haven't used that for ages. But
Wise do you now? I'm wise do you now?
can you see it? Oh no, it's kind of it's kind of obscured by the bloody camera. There you go.
I
It's kind
can
of
see that.
magic. There you go. You
Anyway,
can see it there. There you go. There you go.
so yes, so the International All Round Weightlifting Association has been around since 1982, roughly. And they very kindly asked me to host the World Championships here in Northern Ireland. I chose a venue in Lurgan, which is about 30 miles from me. And it's over 2 days. We had a wonderful World Championships. And it was a real honour to actually to be asked to host it, because it's the first time it's been here. And I think, was it 60 years the organisation's going? No, 40 years, sorry. So amazing to be asked that. And we had a wonderful time. It was silver Saturday and Sunday. I chose not to lift in it because I wanted to focus on, doing a good job and making sure that if something needed addressed, I wasn't too busy stressing about a deadlift or a one hand deadlift or something like that. So, but what I did want to do, I had been training on the 2 hand 1 inch vertical bar lift, which is basically just two 1 inch iron bars with plates loaded on them. So there's no rings or T bars or anything to hold onto. It's straight and slidey. But I've been training for that. I was chasing the all-time world record, any age, any weight, and I, I, I was going to do it on the Sunday after everything was over. And my dad turned up on the Saturday. So he did. And when my old fella's about, is that all bets are off, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to do it and confront him because he literally does add 20 kilos onto me, and he left. I'm going to do if he's there in the front because he would. Oh, well, I used to do that, I would have done that 3 times a week. So he's got that very matter of fact thing. Yeah, so I chose to do it on the Saturday. I was very successful. I managed the record was 250. I managed to pull 255. The plan was pull 270 after that, and then 300. After the 255, Dad and I had a wee moment. It was just a lovely moment, when I'd broken the all-time record, and something inside me said, Stevie, I'll do you for today. And I'm really glad that I left it there because the following day I felt awful. And cut a long story short, I had a heart attack. I was whisked off to hospital. Wibbity quick. I mean, the ambulance was there within 6 minutes. During the day, because I was doing the World Championship thing, and you don't want to let people down and be all dramatic. Oh, so my chest doesn't feel right. I think I'll go to the hospital. You just don't think that way. So I kind of backed off from what I was doing with the loading plates. I let the rest of the guys do that. I had some Coca-Cola. I thought it was low blood sugar. I had some water. Had something to eat, and I generally felt better then as the day went on. But even lifting a 10-kilogram plate gave me a nasty feeling in my chest. Later on that day, everything seemed to calm down. It was when we were clearing up at the end of the night, we had a 25-kilogram plate in each hand, clearing up all the weights and putting them back on the racks. No bother whatsoever. But okay, that's gone. Happy days. We were doing the prize giving that evening, and we're handing out the prizes, and I came back, but I came back with a vengeance. I had to go outside for a while and kind of knew something was wrong. So I said to hell, look, we need to phone an ambulance. And they came along very quickly. I mean, literally 6 minutes, they had me in the ambulance and away. Took me and put a stent in. It was actually a balloon because stents only do straight lines. Mine was on a corner, so they stuck a balloon in, which same as a stent, only it obviously fits in round the corner. They said while they were in there, they noticed that there was maybe something in another artery that didn't, it looked like it might be starting to close over. So they said, we'll bring you in at Christmas. This was early October, 5th of October. So it was months away. So they weren't worried in the least. But a cancellation came up about 2 weeks later. So they got me in. It's called an angiogram where they go in through your wrist and, it's the same way they put the stent in. How do we look? And I was expecting the guy to come out and say, yep, we'll put another stent in there. Or no, you're fine. Don't need anything. So he came out and he says, basically everything's blocked in there. You're going to need a triple bypass.
Oh,
It was not the news I was expecting to hear. I mean, through this whole process, I mean, I like to try and keep positive where possible in life, and I was super positive after the heart attack. And then he hit me with this. And for about 5 minutes, I was like, really? It was a bit of a shock. That definitely wasn't expecting. Having said that, it's in the family, we killed my grandfather at 55. My father's been through it. Cousins and that have all, had diggy tickers. So, it was a thing. It was in the back of my mind. It was always coming. So they told me that, sent me out to the waiting room. And within 5 minutes, I was like, okay, but we knew this was coming. So let's just go get it fixed. Because he said we can do multiple stents or we can do triple bypass now, but it's a no-brainer. Because multiple stents will need more stents over time, and they don't do V junctions and corners and stuff. So I thought, nah, let's just get this done. And just before Christmas in December there, I went in, got my triple bypass. What do I know, about 4 months past it. I feel great. Honestly, I think my energy levels are through the roof. My strength's coming back. I mean, I haven't really been able to train the way I would have trained. But the surgeon, when she put my shoulder or put my sternum back together, because they open your chest obviously to get at the heart and do all what they need to do. They put in titanium bands, and that basically holds the sternum stable while the healing process kicks in. And I think they normally stick in about 6. Apparently, that's the normal number. I get 9. The surgeon said we've stuck extra one in because he said that's when you go back to your stone lifting. I thought she was joking. I genuinely thought she was joking. I Kitty, you're joking. She said no, dead serious. The girl comes around in the morning, when you're in the ward, and she has like this big computer on wheels, and then they stop at your bed, and the doctors all, talk up their sleeves to each other, but you can see on this, you can see X-rays and stuff, and I could see I counted all the all the titanium bands on the X-ray, so I mean, they've done a job on me. They've really put me together well. That all feels very stable at the minute. I'm still coaching. I was able to get back to coaching fairly quick as well as the drumming. And every now and again when I'm coaching, I have a wee pull at something just to see how things feel. So a couple of weeks ago, I went up there for 140 deadlift, and then yesterday, what day is this? Monday. Yesterday, I was coaching yesterday with the guys, and we had some ringed stones, so I picked up a couple of those and did a 20-meter course with them. But it's all. I mean, they weren't heavy stones by any means, but they were just enough, to give a challenge and see how things are feeling. So everything feels great, really does.
I've got a question. Do you make a noise now when you move, like like the $6 million man?
Probably not, but I think I probably will make that noise when I go through when I go through airport security. That's going to be. Yeah. Yeah, no,
So
they've definitely done a job. I mean, like there's definitely a Steve Austin thing going on there.
because you said you feel great now, you feel really, really good. So do you think in hindsight that you had these kind of blockages and things going on that were
Yeah,
maybe reducing your blood flow or reducing your oxygen and the way things, obviously the heart wasn't probably working optimally for quite a while
yeah.
before the heart attack. And then when they went in, they realized, there was other things going on in there. So, in hindsight, do you think this was affecting you for a while beforehand, but you just didn't know?
I had noticed some stuff. I had noticed palpitations.
Mm,
Uh, every now and again, they would just come out of nowhere. You'd be driving or sitting. I mean, it wasn't through physical exertion. You could literally be sitting watching TV. It would start. You would drive in the car. You could be lifting weights. It could be anything. It would just start. So I did go and see about that. Obviously, as soon as that started, I didn't. I'm not one of these guys that leaves things. If there's something that I feel isn't right, I'll go and see about it. And
mm,
I'm in Benetton, which is a bit like Bupa. So it's private medical care, but it's really cheap. It's only like £16 a month. But what it does, it doesn't get you necessarily medical care in a private hospital, but it bumps you up the queue. So it means if a doctor says, for example, if your hips are bad or something, rather than wait 3 years to have somebody look at it, you're in the next week. And
mm,
it's great, it really is. And because I had the World Championships coming up, I thought I'll get those out of the way and then I'll play the Benetton card because they had acknowledged, the fact that I've been referred. They say, we'll give you 6 weeks notice when your appointment comes up. So I'd heard nothing. So I thought I'm at least 6 weeks away from this. World Championships is up in 4 weeks, or whatever it was. So I thought, yeah, I'll just leave it, and then Saturday, Sunday for the World Championships. Monday morning, I'll phone the doctor, play the Benetton card, and get in that week, and we'll get this looked at. Had the heart attack on a Sunday night. No hype as yet.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that didn't work out so well. I think it wouldn't have stopped the fact that I needed a triple bypass. I might have avoided the heart attack. If they'd have been in and seen things and got things done a bit quicker. Hey,
Mm.
McPhee wants in the he wants
Yeah.
in the here. So I might have avoided that, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's been a very positive experience. Weirdly, I wouldn't go out seeking it. There's other ways you can get positive experiences in your life, but
You would recommend it.
there's nothing about it that I regret. Uh, there's nothing about it that ever scared me. I never ever felt like my life was in danger because the NHS, the ambulance guys, Heather, the doctors, the nurses, my surgeon, everybody, they just give me such a sense of confidence,
Mm.
and it was lovely. It really was. It was a lovely experience. And to get home out of hospital before Christmas, and sit with my feet up and watch movies and be literally spoiled rotten. It was kind of a cool Christmas. Well, it was, between and all the temptation that you'd have to go out and lift weights or bang drums, that was taken away from me for a period of time. So I let it all go. I just trusted in God to fix me.
Mm.
Everything, everything took its course, and I really feel that I'm ahead of the game.
Mm.
Because I think you asked me earlier on that I feel that something was wrong apart from the palpitations. My energy levels were definitely lower because I'm like a flipping Duracell bunny. And so I think it was probably about 2.5 months into the recovery. Because whenever you're recovering, I mean, everything's very unstable. And I have a drum kit upstairs in the roof space. So it wasn't even so much about when I could actually physically start playing the drums. It was when could I climb a ladder into the roof space, You need to be a bit more nimble and if there's anything that happened with stability, aside that my lateral stability wouldn't have been great. So I reckon about 2.5 months into it. And I
Okay.
remember going up, I haven't been on stage for about a year and a half. So we packed the Flash Harry the Queen show in after 33 years in December 24, so it's just guitar player's back was gone. So, but we've done it for 33 years. I've been gigging for 45 without a break. So I was happy to, retire. People can entertain me now. I can spend more time with Heather and my doggy and stuff. But a couple of friends have a band and they're playing at a festival at the end of May. So they asked me in January would I cover for their drummer, and I said I would because I think in any recovery or in any quest to get stronger, you have to have a thing at the end of it. There has to be a reason. Why are you going out to the garage to lift weights? Why are you spending 3 hours practicing the drums? That there has to be an end result. So these guys gave me a focus.
Mm.
And I went up, and there was a couple of songs on the list, physically on the drums, very demanding. I mean, one of them is a really old song called Freebird. Everybody thinks it's a lovely wee bop, but there's a bit at the end, and you need to be fit and fast and sharp. My mental sharpness was rubbish. It was when I went up there. And I sat down behind the kit, and I thought I'll have a go at these songs because I knew them in my head, but to physically sit and play them, there's a Foo Fighters one called The Best of You. And I mean, it really is full on. And I had a go and I went, no, not doing it, not happening. I thought at that stage it was beat, but then I thought, you know what, Stevie, let's just push through it. And I kept going up every day, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 15. The next thing I knew, I was spending 6 hours up there. And I'm actually
Right.
obsessed with playing the drum. I've never practiced that much in my entire life, so, but it's the fact that the drumming and having that focus at the end of it, from my mental sharpness, from my physical fitness, from my stamina, my endurance, it has really, I think it has brought me on a lot quicker,
Mm.
even more so than weightlifting would have, because with weights, I'm always wanting to go after the heavy weight, which I can't do at the minute, but I can push myself for a wee extra 10 or 15 minutes playing the drums. So it's been fabulous, really has.
Mm.
I'm just thinking if anyone wants to get an idea of the Freebird thing you've just mentioned, if they go on YouTube, if you've got time, go on YouTube and look up the old grey whistle test, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Freebird.
Yes,
The guitar solo at the end, he's in a white jumpsuit, the guy,
I
playing Les
remember.
Paul, and it goes
Yeah.
on for about half an hour. It just keeps going and going and going, and you're like, if you were playing the drums to that, like Jesus, it
Yeah,
goes
but I
forever.
think that at the end it actually goes up to a bit where everything doubles up. You're moving from just keeping time to playing on the snare drum.
Yeah,
Which, for it's 32 full bars. Now that might not mean a lot to a lot of people, but that 32 bars playing 16 notes at full pelt, that's going to take it out of you.
yeah.
It really is. I'm not recommending that everybody who's recovering from triple bypass surgery goes out and buys a drum kit. But you know what? Something to consider. It's
So,
worth.
and this weekend just gone, as we're recording, you
Yeah,
you got back on stage for the first time, didn't you?
I
Tell
did.
us a little bit about that, because I saw some of the photos were fantastic of you back behind the drum kit on on stage.
Oh,
What was that?
well, I'm close to a year and a half now since I've been on stage, and I have a bunch of friends over in England. They have an AC/DC tribute. They're called Dirty DC. And any time that they come over to play Belfast, they come over twice a year. They end up back at our house. They wreck my kitchen. They sleep all over the place, and they use my drum kit, because they just travel light. So I always let them have my kit. We've become really good friends over the years. And it was not Saturday that passed, the Saturday before. They were playing in Belfast, and they always sell out, and Heather and I always go down and support them. So they got me up because they knew I hadn't played for a while. And I had a wee moment of, oh, am I ready for this? And then I was like, you know what? If I'm not ready now, I'm never going to be ready. You're better. That old thing, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mm.
So they got me up. We did dirty deeds done dirt cheap, or dirty deeds done with sheep, as we call it. We did that, and it's a good pounding rock song, And I got up and did it, and you know what? I don't think my feet touched the ground for the rest of the night.
Mm.
It was just a lovely feeling to be back on stage, playing with other musicians, and then since then, the guys that I'm standing in with at the end of May have been up here for a rehearsal and playing with other musicians. It's not even necessarily in front of an audience, just not sitting playing along with a record, but playing with other people. It's the
Mm.
most amazing feeling, honestly.
Mm.
It's kind of reminded me why I've been a musician for 45 years. I've really got I don't want to go out touring again, but every single chance I get, I'm up there playing the drums. Anytime somebody needs to, I'll be there.
Mm.
I'll be there playing the drums. It's been amazing. So that was lovely because it's Belfast, it's my hometown. It was a sold out gig. It's a very popular band. And I got to play a bit of AC/DC, and it was just, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was really
And
good.
is the gig that you're performing playing with in May, is that in Belfast as well?
It is. It's up at, we have a university here called Queen's University.
Mm.
The Students' Union building facing it, it's called the Mandela Hall. That's the big concert venue in there. So it's quite a big venue, and they've an all day, they call it a tribute festival. So there's all these Black Sabbath, Queen, AC/DC, the different tribute bands on through the day. And the guys that I play, it's just classic rock, so it's all your what classic rock stuff. You know, it's
Mm.
Bon Jovi, it's the Foo Fighters, it's Leonard Skinner, it's everything. So I'm really looking forward to that. So, you
Oh,
know,
that'd be fantastic. And then you've got a big, I know you're already starting to plan this because I've seen the t-shirt design from the Smash and Pass guys, which is a black
yeah,
and gold t-shirt this year.
yeah,
Obviously when we've been on before, we've spoke about the Donald Dinnie Day, the gathering up in Potarch in Scotland.
yeah.
And this year is the 10th anniversary, isn't it? So I know you're well already into sort of planning and sort of getting on that for August. Do you want to tell us a bit about what you've got in store and what's going to be going on there?
Love to, love to. So yeah, the 10th, I can't believe it's the 10th anniversary. I mean, we did the first one in 2017. And Levi from Smash and Pass, Levi and Claire have been so kind to us. You know, they provided the t-shirts every year. And with the design thing, I mean, I like to come up with something a wee bit different every year, rather than just the same design on a different color. Although some years we do that, but this year with the 10th anniversary, I said to Levi, look, we've got to do something. So I said, can we do a big 10? You do the normal kind of design, a big 10, and the Dinnie stones in the middle. So he goes away and uses his magic. And I mean, I did his head. I have to apologize to Levi because I'm back. I'm so picky with the gathering because I mean, it's so precious to me. You know, like everything has to be just perfect. You know, so we did, and I asked him, can you print in gold? And he said, yep, we can do gold. We can do anything. Levi's one of these guys. No matter what you ask him, the answer is yes, which is that's if you're going to choose people to work with, that's the kind of people you really want to work with. And he has absolutely smashed the design this year. I think it's wonderful. So it's a black t-shirt with you can obviously tell it's the 10th year. And I absolutely love it. So it's you can see it on my Instagram. You see if you want it, you see a picture with a big 10 on it. That's it. With the
Mm.
poster done. I'm pretty much done with the organizing. I mean, I have all the athletes in place. I've chosen all the events. Well, obviously, when I choose the events, I've got to go and speak to Brett to make sure that they're feasible. You know,
Mm.
because it's one thing me having an idea in my head what we're going to do, but I need to speak to Brett about, is it possible to do? And every year we like to introduce something a bit new to keep it fresh. I mean, obviously, you have about 13 or 14 different events there that we can use and mix up, and we can park, we can rest some for a year or two, we can bring new ones in. But I like to add something new every year. Last year we did that. We called it the Petarch Medley because I name all of the events after somebody I consider to be significant in stone lifting or strength circles, And I had never named it anything after a place. But because I mean the Dinnie Stones and the bridge are so intertwined and synonymous with what we're doing there. I call it the Petarch Bridge Medley because we always wanted to do a medley, and Brett and I had always talked about some sort of a sled pull thing. So we come up with this idea of duck walk a stone, a ring stone, push a fella as a stone, a stone to shoulder over a 10-meter course. You got to bring the three up to the line and get those on the ground, and then you move across to a massive big sled. And everybody failed it last year except the last guy to go. So
Mm.
I thought, flip, I've got this wrong. But one guy did it. So, it was the Arnolds this year actually did something very, very similar. They had a sled with ringed stones on it, the same as we had last year. So I'm absolutely blown away that they would do something even remotely similar to what we do. It's lovely to see it. I know, I mean, obviously one of the games is named after John Todd, who is heavily involved, but it was wonderful to see that up here at the Arnolds. So I have a
Yeah,
nasty.
Yeah, Jan Todd, who we're still trying to get on the podcast,
Oh, good
Stevie.
luck with that.
I've
He's a
I've
very good.
emailed him. I have actually had a couple of emails, but it's just I'm just one
She must
day.
she must have learned to play tennis from Terry back in the day. She just keeps like, oh.
Oh, what I mean, Jan keeps herself so busy. She really is hard to tie down and speak to. But what I will say is, when you do get her on, it'll be worth the wait.
Yeah.
Well, I
Because
know, I
the knowledge and the
know.
passion that Jan has, and it was wonderful to be able to name the games after. I mean, I had the idea of doing it, but I obviously ran it past her to make sure that she was okay with it, and she was. And we got a lovely Jan Todd trophy designed last year. It's basically there's a wonderful picture because Jan was the first lady to lift the Dinnie stones back in 1979. And there's a wonderful picture of her standing over the Dinnies. So we took that and we actually got it put into a 3D printer, which printed off this wonderful trophy, and what I might do in future years is get miniature versions so I can give out the athletes. I still do the Donald Dinnie Day plaque that I give to everybody, but that just sits beautifully beside the Donald Dinnie trophy for the men.
I'll tell you what's amazing. I don't know whether your dad will be there this year as well, but what's amazing is he was the first to do it and he's there. Jan Todd was the first lady to do it and she's there. So you can see when people compete, they're like, we're competing in front of the first people ever to do it, or like in the new age sort of thing. And you could see I can't remember the names of the lady athletes, but they were like, this is Jan Todd. They were like next to her with the trophy and that. Like, it's Jan Todd. And it's just brilliant to see. And then, like, obviously the Stoltzmans were there. I think you said Loz is going to be there. And it's one of those things, like, and I've been saying this about like the disabled strongman stuff that Gary does, because I know a little bit about what might happen with that this year. It's if you go to a Giants live event or something, you pay a lot of money. It's £10 a pint. It's £20 a burger. You have to do the VIP experience and that. The Donald Dinnie Day is free. Yep. Jack and Jan are there. You're there. The Stoltzmans they're all just there. Like you're just there in the field. And you go and say hello. It's brilliant.
I mean, when you talk about sort of people who would be significant in the Dinnie Stones, I mean, obviously my dad has his place in that. You know, I mean, there's Brett Nichols lifted the stones over 600 times.
Yep.
He had his own nickel walking stones that we're parking them this year just to keep them special. You know, we've had them every year. So, but that, I mean, that's and we've had Martins Lisis in the past. You know, we've had so many significant people. We're doing a wee bit of arm wrestling this year.
Ooh.
So,
right. You said there was something named after Jeff Capes this year.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So we were talking about new events. So that Petard medley was last year. So that's kind of old news now. You know, that's yesterday's stuff. So this I've always, and Brett and I have spoken about this quite a bit in the past. So in my head, I mean, I'm trying to compare stone lifting and strongman and weightlifting, you know, because to me they're all intertwined. And obviously the stone lifting was first there, you know. So I'm kind of wondering, you know, if people had a bit of imagination and like stones laying about a field, what would they have done with them? You know, what rather than just throw them at each other like we do in Belfast, you know, what sort of things, you know, would they have done? And so there's a strongman event. It's called Fingal's Fingers.
Yep.
Okay. So that there's your strongman bit. There's a stone. Okay. That's my bit. And then you have Highland Games. We have caber toss, which Jeff Capes was a master of. You know, I mean, his world's strongest man things we all know about, but his Highland Games accomplishments were absolutely off the scale, probably on a par with the likes of Donald Dinnie, who you know won 11,000 competitions or something in his day. So what I wanted to do was try and combine that. So I'm calling it the Jeff Capes stone flip. I was going to call it Jeff Capes flipping, just flipping. and I know what that means, and I get a wee laugh every time I read that, but I think I need to explain it. So it's called the Jeff Capes stone flip. So we have a shard, is the best way I can describe it, but it's a stone shard, stands 6 foot tall, weighs in the region of 200, 220, maybe more. We haven't weighed it properly yet. The first one I got, we think, weighed close to 400 kilos, impossible to flip. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to combine caber toss, Fingal's Fingers, and stone lifting. So if you imagine a big shard, a big stone, probably about this width, okay, you've got the track that we would use for the nickel stones. There's 2 ropes kind of mark that track out. So I'm going to bring the ropes a wee bit closer together. We're going to flip the stone the way you would do with Fingal's Fingers. That's the first bit. You got to flip it over. Then what we bring in with the caber toss is how does it land? Okay, so if I narrow the ropes and the stone falls and it touches one of the ropes on either side, it's a no flip, for want of a better word. So we're looking for that 12 o'clock thing that you're looking for in caber tossing. So what the guys are going to do, I mean, because it's a natural stone, there'll be a heavy end, there'll be a light end. So we're going to just ask them to flip the light end. So we're going to flip it. It's going to fall over. They're going to run around the other side and flip it again using the same end. We're going to give them 75 seconds and see how many flips they can complete.
Mm.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so that's a work in progress. I mean, we did get a stone that Brett found, and I mean, I know I write all these things down and do all that stuff, but I mean, Brett's always out around the countryside looking for stones. That's the bit you don't see,
Mm.
you know. So we did find one, thanks to like a whole ton of people keeping their eyes out. But Brett tried to, he couldn't, he said he could hardly just budge it off the ground, let alone flip it, you know, so a
Mm.
bit heavy. So we have another one in mind now, and that's about to be tested. And so I'm 99% sure we'll be okay with this. You know, I have other events standing by in case it doesn't work out, and that's the one I've published. I've actually published the day's events. It's all on the website, you know, on the homepage of my Donald Dinnie website. There's a poster of the gathering with that 10 design we were talking about. Click on
Mm.
that. That'll take you through to the day's events. All the athletes are chosen for taking on the Dinnies, for competing in the games. We have 9 ladies this year. We have 9 gentlemen. You know, so
Wow. Excellent.
big jump forward in the Jan Todd games. One
Yeah,
of
because I think last year there was
Three.
was there about 3 or 5 ladies last
three,
year? Three
three
in the end. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, obviously injuries and different things affect people turning up, you know, who would maybe have previously been on the list. But the big thing I think that affected us last year was the official strongman games. Now, the people who run that, I met them at FIFA and they were lovely. And I, I didn't mention the fact that it's on the same weekend as the gathering to ask them would they run it on another weekend. It was just more of an FYI. It was more of a casual conversation thing. But the minute that they heard that, they said, "We'll move that. You know, we can choose any weekend we like throughout the year to run the games. So we we're going to move that, and that automatically frees up the ladies who want to
Mm.
compete in the thing. But then if you got the chance to compete in the official strongman games, that's a big deal. You
Mm.
know, so I mean, obviously they're going to choose that, and I completely get that. You know, so but I was determined that we'll ride the storm. We'll keep pushing through because at some point the Jan Todd games are going to take off, and they have absolutely exploded this year
Mm.
to the point
Excellent.
where I mean I'm full now. I actually have a reserve list for competitors for the Jan Todd games, let alone reserve lists that I've always had for lifting the Dinnies and
Mm.
reserve lists for the men wanting to compete in the Donald Dinnie games. We now have a reserve list for the Jan Todd games, which and it's horrible having to hold people on a reserve list, but what an amazing problem to have. I mean,
Oh
Mm.
really,
yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even begin to describe how proud I am of everything because it's got this traction now and people want to do it. I've actually had what I've had to do is I've had to put on a session on Saturday, the day before, at the Aboyne Highland Games. Because one of the things that you have to do for the men particularly, you must have lifted Dinnie stones in the past. That's it. There's no getting around that. If you haven't lifted the Dinnie stones, I can't consider you for the Dinnie Games, which I think is
Mm.
a good thing because I mean, obviously Donald Dinnie, the Dinnie stones, that's 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 the nucleus of this whole thing.
Mm.
I've had the same thing for the ladies, and well, from the ladies' side, we really want to grow that. I mean, I really want to grow that because you can see how much the ladies' side has grown in the strongman and weightlifting and every other field of sports. So, and the stone lifting, I know they're all out there, they're all doing it. You see it at P4, you know. So I want them to come in, but it's a hell of a thing to ask, you know, to lift the Dinnie stones barehanded. So the first thing we did to address that when they to promote inclusion was I spoke to the committee that was in place at the time about ladies lifting stones, and I said, look, we have to permit straps. We don't permit straps. I said we don't permit straps for. I mean, they're not our stones. They belong to the Logia Estate, you know. But I suppose in some ways, the keepers of the stones maybe sounds a bit arrogant. We're not. We're the ones who are doing something about it, you know. And we're trying to get it out there and publicise it and keep the Denny stones in the forefront. So we're all working hard to do that, you know. And it's a natural challenge. And the big thing about the Dinnies, and it was always, you know, from David Webster's day right through that you must lift them barehanded because I mean my dad wasn't the first man to lift the stones off the ground. That was Dave Price back in 1963, but he used hand straps, you know, and there was a whole deal with them like Shearer using hand straps and you know, so we're at the point now with the guys, it's a natural challenge, lift them with your bare hands. Then there was John Todd and then there was Lee Holland Keane, you know, but Lee Holland Keane wasn't going to attempt them because of the requirement to use your bare hands. So I spoke to the committee and said, look, let's for now permit straps for ladies. And then what that means is they go into the book, onto my website. Those are the things that are ours, and we can control those. And if somebody wants to come along and lift, I mean, a guy wants to lift them with hand straps, and he's able to do that. It won't go in the books, but they can do that. So we've opened that up for the ladies, and it has opened the floodgates in a good way, a really positive way, because there's more and more now, and there's even ladies coming along now and lifting with bare hands. I don't think we're quite at the point yet where we take away the straps, which is going to, and again, that's not going to be my decision or Brett's decision or Jim Splain's decision or Belowy's. I think we need to talk to the ladies themselves. We need to get around the table with them and say, right, this is your thing. We're facilitating it for you. But what do you want to do?
Do you know what? Right, a couple of things are happening in my head now, because we've just had, yesterday was the London Marathon as we record this, and the guy did 1:59:30 officially. Wow. Do you know? Wow. Have you not seen this, Stevie? The guy who came second did 1:59:41, and he didn't win. Imagine that. So
wow.
But remember, so that's 4 minutes 33 per mile. I think it's that for 26.2, or it's 422 consecutive 100 meters at 17 seconds, right? Roger Bannister, first person to do 4-minute mile, thought that was impossible. The 2-hour marathon was impossible. So ladies using straps on the Dinnies, the more that do it, or the more, or Chloe, because Chloe did it a couple of weeks ago, didn't she? With
Chloe did it with the bare hands.
Yeah. So the more women who do it with straps, there'll be ones who then train to do it without straps, and then the more who do, the more will realize they can, and then it'll just become a thing.
Yeah. Well, remember, I mean, that was probably, I can't remember what year she did it. 2019, I think, maybe 2018. Annika Carew came along and lifted the Dinnie stones with her bare hands, and she held them for over 9 seconds. I'd say it's a 10-second lift. It's as close to 10 seconds as you get. So that's already happened. And I mean, there are so many ladies who lift them with their bare hands now. So that side of it is coming on. And I was talking about opening up the thing now on the Saturday for the ladies. What I've done for the ladies now to get them into the games is what I've said is you have to train for the Dinnies. You have to be seen to train for the Dinnies and come along and attempt them. Okay, because it's about commitment. When you think about it, I mean, the reason that we're asking for these things is to show commitment to what it is that we're promoting or what we're involved in here, and that's the Dinnie Stones. So the commitment is, I can see you on your social media doing all the training. They're coming to me, they're coming to Jim, Brett, and other people out there here, quote Chloe, other people who sort of help and assist people who are training for them. So they're showing that commitment. They're actually making the journey all the way to Aberdeenshire, to Petard, to take these on. So that's massive commitment. So for the ladies, if they pass and get a successful lift, or if they're not successful on the day, I think they've shown enough commitment that we can put them into the games. Because of that now, we now have 9 ladies and a reserve list. So, and I think it was a wise move at this stage. Obviously, as the ladies thing grows, at some point I'm going to have to say, no, you're going to actually have to lift the Dinnies to get into the games, because we need this short list down, because there's only 9 people we can fit. But I think we're moving in the right direction. Things are happening well. We're relaxing things a wee bit just to promote inclusion, and I think it's working. And I'm so pleased with that. I mean, this year in particular, I had everything finished end of January, pretty much.
Yeah, there's a great lesson in all that as well. Of it's the 10th year, and it's just starting to get a bit more traction. It takes time. It's like you say about commitment. It's taken 10 years to get to this point, and then it's now reached a level where it's going to level up again. So
I think every year it's going to go up a level, Peter. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Yeah.
What's interesting as well, Stevie, is as we're recording, the weekend just gone was the world's strongest man out in Myrtle Beach in America, and the last 2 years they've had this kind of Stones of the World event there, haven't they, as well, which has been more like based around natural stones. So I think there was a ringed stone carry. There's like a kind of a Husafell carry. There's a stone to shoulder. There was a really big kind of
last year. We did that last year as part of a medley.
Yeah, yeah, and
Exactly
then there
that.
was this, I saw there was this huge rectangular stone that they had to lift up onto like a plinth.
Plinth,
And I
yeah.
saw Andrew Flynn sort of did it, and then he kind of collapsed. He fell back afterwards, and kind of, I don't know if he actually passed out or if he just sort of feigned it because he's so exhausted and he was glad he did it. But yeah, so there's a real kind of that whole natural stone. Obviously, they always World's Strongest Man is famous for the Atlas stones, which are obviously perfectly spherical. But the fact that the last 2 years they've had this sort of stones of the world, which is more showcased natural stone lifting in
Yeah.
such a
And
big
they have the
event is
Webster
really
stones
good,
as
isn't
well,
it?
remember? They've actually introduced the Webster stones on a couple of occasions,
Mm,
which are based on the nickel stones, which is, you know, that's massive. No, it is.
yeah.
What's fascinating as well is like they all struggle with it as well. Most of them found it really hard,
Mm.
which
Yeah.
puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
Stone lifting's not easy. It's not, when you're talking about people passing out with that Husafell type lift, once you get a stone on your chest, with the Husafell in particular, if you hold it up high, you can breathe, but you can't see. You hold it low on your chest, you can see, but you can't breathe. And I have seen guys, I've seen guys passing out with the Husafell thing before, like big, strong guys, literally, because it's here and they can't get it. If they forget to breathe before they lift it and lock it in, then
Mm.
there's no way for the air to get in, and literally they pass out. So it's not for the faint-hearted. So it's not.
I think since last time I saw you, I was in November. I was out in Iceland for the Magnus Classic, and Chris Beetham was out there. I spent quite a lot of
Yeah,
time with Chris, and he obviously won one of the Dinnie days, didn't he? I can't remember
he
which one.
certainly did. Yes, it was 2023.
2020. God, yeah. So, but so the first time, so he did the Husafell stone. I think he may have even been first. No, he was second out. And I think he did like maybe 2 laps with it round the pen, the actual Husafell stone.
Yeah,
So yeah, he was a great guy. Spent quite a lot of time with Chris. Yeah, and we had him on the podcast since as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was
I
he was great.
first met
Yeah.
Chris, I think, in 2017 at the first gather. And what an incredible stone lifter! What an incredible athlete! I mean, it's lovely to see him, progressing up in the. I mean, he was a Donald Dinnie champion, but he's then going on this to win Scotland's Strongest Man title. He's going on now the Giants Live.
Mm.
And I mean, he's basically on the world stage now. So, and Conor Curran, another former uh, Donald Dinnie Day champion, on the world stage. I'm so proud of those guys, to come up through our event and then to progress on to this. It's great to see it, really is.
Yeah. No, it's
You
fantastic.
mentioned Lava Stones. I mean, I know that not everybody who's listening to this will know as much about stone lifting as we do, and because I think a lot of people take the Atlas stones for granted that they've always been there, but for anybody that doesn't know, the Atlas stones actually come from a natural stone lifting challenge called the Inverstone. The
Hmm.
Inverstone is an egg-shaped stone that's in Aberdeenshire, not too far from the Dinnie stones. You can currently see it up at Bramar. 265 pounds, 120 kilos, egg-shaped granite. Quite hard to hold on to, although it is a bit of traction. It will tear your arms. The challenge for that was to lift it onto a wall at waist height. That's how you got jobs and farms and all that sort of stuff. That's how Donald Dinnie got his name from his father Robert. He said, if somebody can put this, I think it was on this. These stories get distorted, so I'm not sure if it's correct. But if somebody could lift the Inver onto his shoulder, I'll name my firstborn after him. So it was a guy called Donald MacDonald lifted it on his shoulder. Therefore, Donald Dinnie got his name on that. But that lifting the Inverstone onto a wall at waist height, you can't use historic stones in competition. They need to be left where they are. And the challenge is what the original natural challenge was. So David Webster and Dougie Edmondson created the McGlashan stones back in the late 80s, which appeared in the World's Strongest Man. They had sand-filled barrels at waist height, not the big tall ones we see now,
Mm.
ones at waist height. And they created 5 of these, 80 kilos up to 140 kilos, to be lifted up onto these barrels. And the McGlashan stones then got picked up by the American by the American Strongman federations and became the Atlas stones that we see today. So they all came from a natural stone in Aberdeenshire, round the corner from the Dinnies. I
Mm.
think it's important because even a lot of strongmen that I speak to who lift Atlas stones don't know the history of that. I'm like, do you know
Mm.
where these things came from? No, We just lift Atlas stones. So the Atlas stones do have their origins in natural stone lifting.
Because I think John Paul Sigmarsson might have done the McGlashan stones in the Worlds, because I saw would they have been those? Because I saw him lifting onto the barrel with the sand, and back
Yeah.
then they weren't allowed to use any tacky either. So obviously
Nope.
I think
Okay.
it was before tacky, I think. So it was just bare hands lifting these stones up onto these sand top barrels. I remember seeing John Paul Sigmarsson do that. Yeah. So
No tacky and no technique.
yeah.
You had Jeff Capes, you had Bill Kazmaier, you had John Paul Sigmarsson. All of the strongmen of the day would have done those, and I mean, you watch them trying to do them, and you watch how the technique is developed, because those guys were just pure raw strength. Just pick them up and whack them onto the barrels. It was great to watch. I mean, I remember seeing them. I'm fortunately or unfortunately old enough to remember all these things when they first happened, except for Donald Dinnie. I wasn't around when Donald Dinnie did his thing. But it was great watching the McGlashans, and then because it was stones lifting stones on the barrels. I mean, even back then it caught my imagination, because I was obviously still interested in the Dennies at that point. I've been interested in those since I was 8 years of age. So seeing those things coming along in the 80s when I was about 25, I was still well interested in stone lifting. Probably more so because I was getting older and more interested in being stronger. But it's great to see that.
This is incredible. Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, every time we speak to you, Stevie, I mean, it's just, I mean, you've had this health challenge at the end of last year. Now, obviously, you're kind of coming back, and the enthusiasm and the love and the passion for, all things sort of strength training, stone lifting, history is really infectious. I mean, after we both went to last year's gathering, we had Steve Gardner on as well on the podcast.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
he was we met him last year, and he's again someone who I know very well.
Sean was funny because she was saying, like, we sat in the pub with him and went for a pizza and all that, and she was like, I could listen to him all day. Story after story after story. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Because guys like Steve Gardner, he's president of IAWA, the International All-Around Association we're talking about. But back in the day when he was doing his strongman and Highland Games stuff, I mean, he would have competed directly against guys like Jeff Capes. That's the level that he was competing in. And if you ever see any videos of Steve Gardner squatting, he's got perfect straight back. There's no leaning forwards, perfect straight back. And if you're going to put somebody forward as a model for squatting, it would be Steve Gardner. And I mean, and all the all round stuff, he was amazing at that as well.
No, it's brilliant. Well, Stevie, thank you so much. I mean, so in terms of your own training, like you said, I think it may have been just before we started recording, but you mentioned that, you're coaching again now, and occasionally you're having a few cheeky lifts on. I mean, you said I'm not lifting very heavy, but you mentioned just casually pulling a 140 kilo deadlift, which is probably about double body weight still for you, I'd imagine. So
I'm sitting about 67 kilos at the minute.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still a double body weight deadlift, just casually lifting it. But so are you planning on getting back into kind of more structured training yourself over the next 6 to 12 months, or where are you, where's your thoughts about your own? I know you're back into the drumming now, which is giving you a really good workout and obviously rebuilding you. But in terms of strength training, are you planning on kind of doing more of that again?
Well, everybody around me is, Stevie, don't be doing this. You've done all that. Take it easy. I know I've got this. Take it, and I know it's coming from a place of love and concern for my well-being. My surgeon, when she put my sternum back, I'm not sure if that wee bit we had to cut out, but I told you. But when they opened my chest, they put your sternum back together with titanium bands, and it was the same night or the next morning, the surgeon came around to see how I was doing, after my surgery. And she said, I've given you some extra titanium bands to stabilize your chest so when you can go back to your stone lifting. So for me not to go back to stone lifting would actually be quite rude. She went to all that trouble, because normally people get, I think it's 659. I've 9 of these things in my chest to hold me together.
Yeah, so you've literally been reinforced
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
for
I
lifting
don't know if
again.
that's cheating or not. Would that be classed as cheating?
Yeah.
So in my training, I mean, I don't think I'm ready to resume full training yet because I need to be reasonably sensible for once in my life. But what I do when I've done a wee coaching session, I mean, for example, about two weeks ago, I wanted to try it. I work on percentages, so there's no point in me working on, percentages of 215 kilos or something like that because I know I'm not going to be deadlifting that anymore. And triple body weight's not even in the picture at the minute. But I thought if I can just do a few deadlifts, warm up nice, and just pick up a few weights, see how my chest feels, see where I end up at, then I've got something to do a percentage of. So I worked up to 140 kilos, but it felt difficult, but I probably could have done more. But I thought, no, that's enough. So I'm going to work on percentages of that for a wee while and just build everything nice and gradually. We were coaching yesterday morning, and there was some ring stones kicking about, and there's a 10-meter course. So I walked up and down the 10-meter course with a couple of ring stones just to check my grip and stuff. So it's just wee things like that. But I don't know if I want to go back to the massive weights. But having said that, when I took that world record for the 1 inch, the 2-hand 1 inch vertical bar, my plan that day was 300 kilos. I did 255 to take the record. Then I was going to do 270, 300, which I didn't do because I had a lovely moment with Dad. But and I'm glad I didn't do it because it probably would have killed me. So it would almost my heart was it. So I think there was, I mean, God was at work there. There was. I definitely didn't do that for a reason, but I consider that unfinished business. I think I would like to do that. I would like to get the 300 in that. I don't think I need to go back and be lifting sort of Dinnie stone weight on rings again, possibly. But I think at my age, I mean, I'll be 63 soon. So if I get myself in good shape, and build up my stamina and the strength of, even if you're doing bodybuilding type training, your strength's going to come up anyway. So I think 8 to 10, 12, 8 to 12 rep range rather than the 3 to 5 rep range might be more suitable for a gentleman of my advanced years.
Yeah, I
I
think
haven't I just haven't decided. I just don't know.
yeah, because that whole kind of natural bodybuilding as we age for longevity and
Yeah,
just building and maintaining muscle mass and
yeah,
strength, like you
yeah.
say, maybe you don't need to be chasing huge extreme kind of weights or like you say, you'll see, but start
It's
gradually, I
funny
think.
though
Yeah.
because we did an episode about this a couple of weeks ago about volume, intensity, density,
Yeah.
frequency. You've so you know what you're doing, but
Yeah,
because of what's happened, you have to then play about with those variables to still be able to stay into what you're doing. But then you can also change the variables back again
you
if you
can.
feel up to it. So
Yeah.
that's an
Any kind
interesting
of training,
real world application of it, isn't it?
yeah. I'd say to anybody that I'm working with, anything I do myself, there has to be an end goal. Having that gig on the 30th of May, it's given me a timeline. It's given me specific songs to learn. It's given me specific goals in terms of fitness, mental sharpness, and playing ability. I like to do the same when it comes to my weightlifting. So there's at the end of this, I'm going to take the all-time record for the 2-inch vertical bar, or I'm going to lift the Dinnie stones, or I'm going to whatever that might be. But there has to be a reason. So at the minute, I'm just poking about, and seeing the different directions that I can go in. And then once I do that, then I'm going to identify the one that appeals to me most, set an end goal, and I'll work towards that. Because that way I can focus my training. I'm not just randomly going out to the garage and just picking up something for the sake of it. That you're actually working on percentages of this number you're working towards or what your current capabilities are. I think that is so important for anybody that's lifting weights or anything in life. If it requires dedication and training, what are you training for? Otherwise, I think you're floundering about with no focus and no purpose. That's how it works for me. If I don't have a purpose, I mean, sometimes I won't even bother going out the garage. It's like nothing to train for.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree. No, this is so interesting, Stevie, and it's so lovely to catch up with you again. And yeah, so the Dinnie, the 10th anniversary Donald Dinnie Day, the Gathering, it's the first weekend in August, isn't it? I believe.
Yes, so we're
Yeah.
on. Sunday, the 2nd of August, from 12 noon.
Mm.
And come along to Petark. If you're in the area, come along. It's free. We have lovely burger stands and all this year. We have arm wrestling going on. We have attempts at the Dinnies. We have carry attempts possibly. We have big laws coming up. The Stoltman brothers are coming up. We have husband and wife lifting the Dinnies together.
It's going to be great.
It doesn't get any better.
Have you booked the weather again for this year? Because last year the weather was absolutely incredible as well, wasn't it? We'll
Always
see.
have a wee word. Always have a wee word.
Well, I'll be there at the. We'll be there at the Aboyne games as well. The day
Brilliant,
before
brilliant.
as well.
We're probably going to start that at about 11 a.m. And I
Yeah,
think
we'll be there.
we have 10, mostly ladies, taking on the Dinnies, because the ladies are coming over to take on the Dinnies to pre-qualify for the games the next day. So that's the plan there. And the reason I do it the day before, it's just to facilitate the sheer numbers that we have now, but also it gives them, rather than do it on the morning of the games and then they're straight into competing, if they do it on the Saturday, then they can get at least a night's rest, bit of nutrition, bit of sleep, and reasonably fresh, or maybe not as unfresh.
Yeah.
So what time will that be? Sorry, did you say 11? Because we'll be there.
11 o'clock at Aboyne.
Done. Right.
And
See
then
you.
we have 10 making an attempt at 11 o'clock at a point. So that'll probably last. Normally the sessions that we run it every month up at Petark for people taking on the Dinnies, and we normally cap that at 8, and that takes 45 minutes. So about an hour. We'll probably spread it out a wee bit, to make more of a spectacle of it, because there's going to be so many people at the games. Rather than get it all in the 1 hour, and if you don't appear in that hour, you've missed it all. We might spread it out. Depends what the athletes feel, how they. I mean, if I was an athlete wanting to do that on the Saturday, I'd want them to lift at 11 and get it done. I wouldn't want to wait 3, 4, 5 o'clock. I'd want to get it out of the way. Otherwise, you're running around stressing about it all day. And I'm not that cruel yet. So I'm not.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stevie. It's absolutely a pleasure, and we are. I mean, I think I speak for Pete and myself. It's so great to see you back, in good health and drumming again, and starting to train again, and all the rest of it. It's just fantastic.
It's great to be here, to be honest with you. I mean, it's really, and one of the things that I have to say to anybody watching this, the support and the love that I felt from the stonelifting community, the music community, my friends, my family, from God above, I have had such power from everybody, and I thank you off from the bottom of my heart. Honestly, I couldn't have got through this without the support and the level of affection that I felt, from my friends and the stonelifting community, everybody. Thank you so much. Honestly, you have no idea what it means.
Oh, no.
I would say with that, though, that comes from the amount that you've given towards music, like 33 years in music, playing for 45 years and touring, and in the stonelifting community, you've given everything to that as well. So it just comes back to you, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, if that's what sparked this, then I'm really glad I put the hours in.
Absolutely. It's like, why do you do it? You do it because you want to, but then when you need it to come back to you, there it is. So
it did, and spades. Honestly, it completely blew me away. The amount of private messages that if I put a wee Facebook post up of me lying in hospital with tubes coming out of me, it was wonderful. Really, honestly, truly wonderful experience. That's why I said that this has been a positive experience for me.
Yeah.
Because of my interaction with all the people that, because Facebook can be quite a cold place sometimes, but I have found it quite the reverse. I have drawn so much power and healing from that, and I'm so grateful for it.
I thought your initial post when I read it, because you were like, "Oh, I did this little thing at the weekend and blah blah blah," and then I beat a record, and then this little thing happened, and I was reading it and I was like, and I think I sent James a message. I was like, "Have you seen that Stevie's had a heart attack?" Because I had to read it like 3 or 4 times. I was like, "I think it says he's had a heart. I'm not sure." It was really weird. Yeah.
But here we are now, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. I think that's one of the things I'm very grateful for. It's behind me now. So the genetics thing, because it is genetics. It was never a lifestyle thing. It's genetics. So I thank God for his skinny legs that he gave me, and I thank God for his dicky ticker that he gave me. You give me some cool stuff as well, like, you know.
Oh dear,
Thank
brilliant.
you guys. Thank you guys. And I look forward to seeing you
Yeah,
gathering, if not before.
yeah, thank you so much, Stevie. I mean, that was fantastic. And thank you, everybody. Hopefully you've enjoyed that as well. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially Apple Podcasts. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. Give Stevie a follow on Instagram and check out everything to do with Donald Dinnie. What's the main website? Is it the Donald? Is it Donald, is it what's the actual main website that is everything is on? Can you just give us that again?
Yeah, it's just the dinniestones.com.
The
That's it. Yep.
dinnystones.com.
Yep.
Brilliant.
I
And
keep
that's
that
where
for
you, yeah, and that's where you can see information about the gathering, you know, all the events like Stevie
you.
mentioned and things
Yep.
as well. Fantastic. So we will see you all next week for episode 297. And I believe that Pete and I will be talking, having a conversation around motivation and whether motivation is a myth, which is an interesting topic. We'll be talking about that next week. So until then, thank you very much, Stevie.
Thank you, guys. Lovely to see you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter Lant.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you next week. Until then, bye bye.